Okay.
Where were the folks? Where were the? Thank you for your patience.
I'm calling the meeting to order. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Davis.
Present.
Councilmember Keel. Here. Councilmember Kerr.
Here.
Councilmember Parmet.
Here.
Councilmember Sullivan.
Here.
Councilmember Thisted. Mayor Riley.
Present.
There are 6 members present.
All right. Next item is approval of the agenda. If no one had any changes to the agenda.
A point of order.
Yes?
I'd like to propose that we move the first item on the consent agenda off the consent agenda to enable some discussion. That would be like ordinance.
We're not at that item yet. You're welcome to offer that when we get to the consent agenda.
Okay.
We need to approve the agenda. When we get down to the consent agenda, then we can, if someone wants to move something off the consent agenda, then we can do that. Councilmember Parmet.
Motion to approve the agenda.
Motion by Sullivan, moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hands. All those opposed? Motion is carried. And I didn't see Councilmember Kerr's vote. All right. Is there a chance we can get Councilmember Kerr on the screen so we can see her?
She'll need to turn on her camera so we can spotlight her. But if she turns on the camera, we can just hit her.
So Councilmember Kerr, could you turn on your camera?
My camera is on. I can see it on the
There
screen.
we go. Great. That way we can get the visual cues as well. The next item is communications to council. This is a public comment period, and any item can be discussed unless it's on the agenda. For tonight's meeting, I know there's a group of folks in the audience who would like to talk about short-term rentals. And so we will allow comments on short-term rentals. And as a preparatory comment for that going in, I think the council's approach on short-term rentals has been to, for the near term, to keep the existing policies in place with Summit County, not make any significant changes to those. And then in the next year, after we transition 2,000 short-term rental licenses, bring together a complete community commission that would include the homeowners, that would include the short-term rental owners, the short-term rental host. It would include the major short-term rental management companies, the 3 of those in Keystone, Summit Cove, Summit County Mountain Retreats, KRPM, homeowners, HOAs, to give a look at the short-term rental regulation as it exists and make recommendations. We'd also have an opportunity to collect data that we would then be able to use and make database decisions on the future of that program. So that's kind of been our approach walking in. It's just as a preference for any public comment. And now comments are limited to 3 minutes per person, please. And please state your name. Come to the podium and state your name, and you're free to discuss.
So, so we can.
Please come to the podium.
So, Larry Cross, Hidden River Lodge. So we can talk about short-term rentals when?
Right now.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I have to deal with it pretty regularly. We got in our buildings a mixture, like 1/3 local, 1/3 short-term rentals, 1/3 people second homeowners. But the big problem is, and this might be the county's problem, is there's no enforcement, okay? I mean, you can call a sheriff and you can call and report short-term rentals, but that puts me in the position of managing people who are running a business next to my home. So I'm entitled to peaceful enjoyment. All of us are entitled to peaceful enjoyment, peaceful and quiet enjoyment of our homes. So they stuck the short-term rentals in there, and the people, you probably got a flavor of them when they're giving all you guys crap about not voting. But they're basically just trying to make money. So they minimally try to manage their place. The county doesn't come and help with regulations like you're supposed to post a poster telling people various things, where the trash is. So essentially you got people who don't live here using a cleaners and management company to run a business, a hotel, with no control. Other than me calling the sheriff and then them calling me back. So I'm managing their lack of responsibility in having a hotel management. And I put a set of rules because the short-term rentals don't, owners don't think it's, even though it's a regulation for a short-term rental, but to have a list of rules for the building, they blow that off. It's too much of a pain. They can't even put a a plaque up saying people live here. This is the quiet time. We got people going to the hot tub at 3, slamming doors. So it's a big problem at Hidden River Lodge. So hopefully, I don't know if you took this right out of the county, but they have, one particular phrase is, the people that are renting their units shall endeavor, not shall with consequences, but they make an effort. But then people, it's basically blowing it off. The county blows it off. So the people who live here got to get up at 5 and go to work and serve all these people, take the, are affected massively by this. It's a constant thing. We really look forward to season being over, both of them. So most of them go away. Anyway, hopefully you can, or I can give you some suggestions of better enforcement and put some teeth into it. People live here, and the people that don't live here, it's just a money-making business. They don't really, at least, a certain percentage of them. Now if it's a pain, there might be a few that care or put the signs up.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Is there anyone else who'd like to speak?
I'd like to speak. It's not about short-term rentals, so if you want to stay on that topic.
Come up to the podium, please. And state your name.
My name's John Mullins. I'm a longtime homeowner in Keystone, second homeowner. I'm also a professor at London Business School, and I've been studying entrepreneurs and their ventures for a very long time, and I am struck by the audacious entrepreneurial venture that is the town of Keystone, and the trust that's been placed in all of you to manage that venture. And I've learned some things in my career studying entrepreneurs, and one of the things I've learned is that the best of breed focus on doing 1 or 2 things and getting everything else off the plate. And trying to figure out how can we make an impact? How can we accomplish what we set out to accomplish? And not find ourselves in a morass of 87 different things that we're trying to do. And I observed the 4 o'clock session, and I see that you guys are probably overwhelmed with all kinds of things that you have to learn. And so I came to the meeting because I want to suggest that you do what Phil Knight, the founder of Nike, did. Phil Knight wanted to build a better running shoe for distance runners that would solve the problem of ankle sprains and shin splints. And by the way, if the shoe were a little lighter, perhaps it would lead to better race times as well. Well, it wasn't until 10 years later that they started building shoes for somebody other than runners. They focused on doing that, doing it extraordinarily well. Jeff Bezos did the same thing with Amazon. Do we recall what Amazon sold at the beginning? Only books, right? So what I'd like to encourage you to do is what a good friend of mine who's an investor in entrepreneurial ventures has done. He has a big sign that he put behind his desk. So when his portfolio entrepreneurs come and talk to him, they're looking at this big sign. And the sign says, do less, better. So I wanted to suggest that to you guys. Don't get carried away with the 17 things that you can do in the next 5 or 10 years. Figure out together what are the 1 or 2 things that Keystone really needs now. Maybe that's pedestrian access, pedestrian safety on the road. Maybe that's employee housing. I don't know what your priorities are. That's for you to determine. But get focused on those things. Do less, better, and you'll be able to deliver the Keystone that we all want. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Liz?
Paul from Tennistown Homes Board. Just a brief comment that we're about half rentals, half second homeowners or permanent residents in our complex. I'm not sure we've seen any value of the STR program other than the hassle of, people renting. We have declarations, we have bylaws, we have ways to enforce those declarations and bylaws, whether it be noise or trash or our pets. And we've had issues with all of those things, with rental guests and also with owners. And we do that by managing through our declarations and fines if necessary. And that has been the most effective things for us. And the only feedback I've had, I've never made a call to the STR, but people always tell me they can never get through anyone if there's a complaint. And I don't know if that's true.
No, you can get through.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are there any other comments? Anyone online like to make a comment? All right, hearing no more comments, I'll declare the communications to council session closed. And now we have the consent agenda, and I'll recognize Council Member Kerr.
Can I make a quick comment?
Thank you.
On the subject?
Go ahead. Come up to the podium.
Okay. So, Larry Press, Hidden River Lodge. So, we've been talking, everybody, about the traffic situation. Here's a quick one. Reduce the speed limit to 35 in Keystone. That would, we had 2 deaths, people walking on the street, taking it down 10 miles per hour. Can't cost that much to change the signs. And both man and moose will be safer.
Thank you. Now, to the next item on the agenda, the consent agenda, I recognize Councilmember Kerr.
I propose that we remove, sorry, I gotta look this up. Ordinance 2024-0.07 from the consent agenda to enable some discussion.
All right, it's been moved. Is there a second? I hearing no second, then I'll move back to the question, Councilmember Armet.
I want to second it.
Moved and seconded to remove the short-term rental regulation first reading from the consent agenda. Is there any discussion? Councilmember Sullivan, Councilmember Davis.
How will removing this for discussion impact the timeline? And would there be discussion tonight, or would this put it off? I just am curious.
So if you still approve it on first reading, which you can do even if it's not on the consent agenda, then it would go on to second reading and it wouldn't impact the timeline. If you didn't approve it on first reading tonight, then that would impact the timeline.
Thank you.
Councilmember Sullivan.
Just to confirm, the second reading is typically where we would have some open forum and discussions. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. There would be a presentation by staff, questions, council could ask staff questions, and then public can make comments, and then you can debate the ordinance and have further discussion on second reading.
And so with the opening this up, we'd have discussions twice, basically?
Yes.
All right. And would you like to make any comments, Councilmember Kerr?
Yes, please. Yes, I wanted to make a small proposal of an amendment, and it is linked to the fact that you started this meeting tonight, Mayor, by talking about our intent to pass this ordinance now in order to enable a seamless transition from Summit County policy for SRT owners with a balanced management of short-term rentals. But it is also accurate, as you pointed out, that the council intends to seek community input, insights, and ideas that will be used to adapt this short-term rental policy to this very specific Keystone community, because that's the reason this town is here. So I propose an amendment that very simply language to confirm that the town council's intent is to review, rewrite, and adapt this policy with community participation within a given time frame. I'm not sure about how to proceed, but the time frame could be within 1 year of taking responsibility for the STRs in town. Perhaps the intent could be included as a whereas statement, and I ask for consideration of that, of just specifying what we have all talked about multiple times.
All right. Councilmember Davis.
There's an amendment and a second, and I don't think it's appropriate to accept a second amendment.
No, she was making a comment of what she would discuss. I believe what would be discussed was removed from the consent agenda. So the consideration is whether we remove this from the consent agenda or not. Councilmember Parment.
Whether or not we remove, if we don't remove this from the consent agenda, you could still propose that the council pass a resolution to the effect of what you just said, to state our intent, and it doesn't have to be attached to this.
And that could also be added as an amendment next week when the full discussion and the public hearing occurs and after we've had an opportunity to hear from the public on the item. So any other discussion on the motion to remove the ordinance on short-term rentals from the consent agenda? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote of all those in favor of moving ordinance 2024-007, an ordinance of the Town Council of the Town, Keystone, Colorado, adopting short-term rental regulations from the consent agenda. Please raise your hand. Councilmember Kerr, did your hand go up?
She's made it.
Could you repeat that, please?
All those in favor of what I basically said, all those in favor of removing the specific short-term rental license ordinance from the agenda, please raise your hands. All those opposed, please raise your hands. And I see a vote of 5 in favor, and I'm not sure where Councilmember Kerr voted.
She raised her hand in favor and everyone else was.
All right, I didn't see that, so please raise your physical hand when you vote. That will help. Yeah, that will certainly, because we can't see the screen and the detail you're at.
You bet.
So,
Thanks.
the motion has failed, and now the question is, shall we approve the consent agenda? Can I have a motion, Councilmember Parmet?
Motion to approve consent agenda.
Is there a second?
I second.
All right, the motion is to approve the consent agenda, which includes the first reading of ordinances of ordinance 2024-0-07, an ordinance of the Town Council of the Town of Keystone, Colorado, adopting short-term rental regulations, and an ordinance 2024-0-08, an ordinance of the Town Council of Keystone amending ordinance number 2024-0-05, Town of Keystone Land Use Ordinance, and declaring an emergency. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please raise your hands. All those opposed? The motion is carried. The next item is the meeting minutes from the May 28, 2024 meeting, and for the approval. And did anyone have any changes? I'll just ask that first.
Yeah, those were on the consent agenda.
I'm sorry. I left off that was on the consent agenda as well.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Then the next item we're moving on to is the discussion and the consideration of ordinances or really resolutions. The first resolution is Resolution 2024-47, a resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Keystone, Colorado, approving reimbursement of incorporation expenses. And over to you, Mr. Town Manager.
And I am going to pass this on to our town attorney since she wrote the resolution. And just a quick background, it's what we discussed at our last meeting in the workshop.
So basically, under the Colorado revised statutes for the incorporation process, all costs and expenses connected with the incorporation proceeding, including election expenses and fees, and necessary legal expenses, shall be paid by the governing body of the newly incorporated city. Is there?
Before you start that, I'm sorry, I zoned out for a moment. I need to recuse myself from this.
Okay, yes.
Because I was the chair of the incorporation committee, and as a result, I have an interest in this item, so I'm choosing to recuse myself, and I'll now exit the room and turn over the administration of this particular item to Mayor Pro Tem Councilmember Sullivan.
Point of order.
I just need to disclose disclose that I served on the incorporation committee. I have no financial stake other than being a volunteer and a donor.
Okay,
So I do not have a conflict.
okay, thank you. Then, Ms. Madison, could you continue? Please?
Yes, yes, definitely. So those incorporation expenses are to be paid within 1 year within 1 year of the date of the incorporation by the city or town. During the course of the incorporation committee incurred costs of $166,913.16 that should be paid or reimbursed by the town. The incorporation committee did receive donations, but those are not being paid back. Those were donations to the incorporation committee. So this item was discussed at the work session on May 28th. Council reviewed those expenses and instructed staff to prepare a resolution approving these repayment of incorporation expenses. And that resolution is provided in the packet as Resolution 2024-47.
Thank you. Do we get a motion first, right?
Yeah, is there any questions? If there's
Go ahead.
So when we discussed this 2 weeks ago, there were still a few things pending. Have those been incorporated into this, or are we still waiting for a few random things to come through?
They have not been incorporated, so the dollar amounts that are included in the resolution are those amounts that were from the May 28th work session. I did draft the resolution in such a way that would allow for additional reimbursement for expenses.
For nominal expenses?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. But this is the bulk of, we're not missing any major expenses?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion or comments? We see none. Do we have a motion? Mr. Barnett.
Motion approved.
We have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Second?
Second. Okay, so we'll call for a vote. All those approving the ordinance, let me make sure it's right.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I think there was a hand up.
Oh, I didn't see that. Ms. Kerr, do you have a comment? No. Maybe it's been old.
Sorry.
It's Resolution 2024-37.
47.
So call for a vote on that ordinance, town council adopting, again. I heard the number, what was the number?
47.
2024-47.
2024-47. So I'd like to call for a vote. Those correct, those approved, raise your hand. I see 5 votes approving. No, those are saying negative, majority others. So the motion is approved. And with that, we'll call our mayor back in, who's more smooth at this.
I do. You can say we don't need.
I think we could start here. I think we could start here. See, I think it all, we can do it. So maybe I could apply to.
All right, the baton is yours. The motion is approved.
Thank you. And now the next item on the agenda is Resolution 2024-48, a resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Keystone, Colorado, adopting a travel policy. And with that, Mr. Town Manager.
Thank you. As we discussed, CML is coming up this week, so this is a very timely resolution for those of us going down to CML. This resolution adopts a policy that deals with the payment for, whether in advance or reimbursement for costs incurred in traveling by staff, by elected officials, and by appointed officials for the benefit of the town, whether it's to a conference, to a training, to a meeting, whatever the reason may be. This policy sets guidelines on how much you can spend and provides for the reimbursement. It sets our basic costs associated with lodging, food, and incidentals. This policy ties into the GSA produces every year a travel cost calculator. Basically, you can go to any region of the country and it will tell you what a reasonable cost for travel and expenses are. Given the fact that we're in Colorado where travel expenses can vary significantly depending on the season, depending on where you're going, the policy also allows for the town manager to grant exceptions to the policies if they're reasonable exceptions. For instance, at CML, the hotels all fall outside the recommended GSA. I've already checked into at least 3 comparables. If this policy is passed, everyone will have my authority to stay at the hotels they are booked in. It asks that we be efficient in traveling, try to double up, triple up, quadruple up in vehicles when we're traveling. Once again, at CML, we're going to be staying at different hotels, so it really doesn't make sense to double up. It's reasonable to allow each individual to drive their own car down there and expense in a situation like that if the policy is passed. It goes into ideas. You will need prior approval for any sort of travel. All travelers, and you all should have gotten a packet with the reimbursement sheet and our tax exempt certificate. Do what you can to get businesses, restaurants, hotels to accept that tax exempt certificate and waive the taxes we're not supposed to pay. You will run across cases where even if the company can do it, the person you're dealing with at the cash register just does not have the ability. That's not the end of the world. The town can reapply to get those taxes back to the state. In the future, however, we encourage all travelers to try to get it done on the front end. The policy allows for advances. Like for instance, this year it didn't happen, but it would have made sense for the town to pay for everyone's hotel room in advance rather than reimbursing you. Sometimes when staff is traveling, depending on where the conference is, the expense is really an unnecessary burden or possibly an overwhelming burden on the employee. This would allow the town to pay for the registration, pay for the hotel, pay for the airfare if something like that is needed in advance. Everything has to be documented. All expenses have to be documented. What we recommend is you take a picture of your receipts as soon as you get them and email that picture to us and give us a hard copy of the receipts if you have them, but we want to know receipts get lost, receipts get folded up them anymore. It allows a per diem for meals, once again set by the GSA, and other incidental expenses. It allows for things like a local transportation cost. Those would be taxi cabs if the city still has them, Uber, Lyft, light rail, issues like that, parking fees. Occasionally, you're going to need a rental car, pay tolls. It allows tips up to 20%, and other incidental expenses approved by the town manager. Basically, what this policy is trying to do is to make our spending as straightforward, reasonably transparent, with the flexibility needed to make sure that staff and the officials can do what they need to do. Are there any questions?
Councilmember Sullivan.
I looked all of it, and I just need some explanations of the exemptions, specifically the professional services, emergency purchasing, and the water rights and real property. So those are exceptions.
That's
Exemptions.
That's purchasing policy, that's the next thing.
So
I have one question, hearing none from the council members. You mentioned in your discussion up front that the town would pay for, could pay for lodging, for instance, in advance. How would you propose to do that? Because our purchasing policy, which is coming up next, would preclude the use of P-cards for travel.
You are correct. I will probably be bringing the purchasing policy back for an adjustment in the, sometime in this summer.
Or we could make an amendment when we go through it.
Yes, yeah. That's the problem with cut and paste sometimes. Thank you for bringing that up.
Are there any other discussion? Hearing none, can I have a motion? Councilmember Davis.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
2024-48.
All right, Councilmember Sullivan.
second.
Moved and seconded to approve resolution 2024-48, a resolution of the town council of the town of Keystone, Colorado, adopting a travel policy. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please raise your hands. All those opposed? Motion's carried by a vote of 6 to 0. The next item is a resolution of the town council of the town of Keystone, Colorado, adopting a town purchasing policy. Mr. Town Manager?
Okay, I will take this, but I will ask our town attorney to jump in at any time too. So this policy was originally brought to the council at the April 23rd, 2024 workshop. The council reviewed the draft and asked that it be sent back. There was concern that the limits were set too low for manager approval and simple procurement process. One of the most important things you as a council will do is being fiscally responsible for the expenditure of our town's funds, for the taxes that are paid by our residents, by our visitors, grant money wherever the revenue comes from. It is vitally important that the town have a transparent purchasing policy that provides equality of opportunity with certain caveats, and provides just provides assurances to our citizens that the money is being properly spent. No shenanigans, no favoritism, things like that. And that it's being prudently spent. We're getting value for what the town spends. And that's what this purchasing policy is supposed to do. The changes, I really didn't make any changes to the original draft as provided by our attorney. However, I did change 2 classification limits. Procurement classification 1 is simple procurement, which is basically whoever's making the purchase needs to do it with intelligence and prudence. We don't need to solicit bids. We don't need to get competitive quotes, but be intelligent about your purchases. That limit was $1,000 in the original. I proposed raising it to $5,000 in this draft. There are lots of things we're going to need to purchase, from a pallet of cold patch asphalt repair. That is just more than $1,000. Prices are going up. And the other classification I've changed is classification 2. That's town manager of approval of certain expenses. It was originally set at $10,000. I raised that limit to $50,000. That, in the same way, kind of represents the increased cost of those services from subcontractors, legal services, engineering services, things that we don't necessarily want to go through a multi-week process to get approval to spend the money on. Going out for bids, coming to the town council for getting approval. So that $50,000 is pretty much in line with the rest of the mountain resort communities, and it reflects just the cost of doing, I don't want to say day-to-day business, but that's what this increase really is about, dealing with those costs that in general are anticipated, but are more than $10,000. Now, all of these funds have to be budgeted. The fact that it's a $50,000 limit doesn't mean that I can just go spend $50,000 on something that you as a council had no idea or no intention or no pre-warning that this is something we're going to spend money on. So this works within the scope of the budget. Allows expenses which have, in a way, been approved by you in the budget, but need secondary approval. And then we have the third procurement level, which is anything above $50,000, and that's formal procurement, which will involve a request for proposals and board approval of any expenditures such as that. And I will, if I can, pass it to Ms. Mattson to kind of go into the issues I might have skipped over to.
I don't think you really skipped over anything. I think you covered it well, yes.
Does anyone have any questions or discussion? Councilman Sullivan.
I'll try again. I would just like to have three items on the exemptions. If you can kind of explain how we can get a sense as the council of a little bit of control or double checking for these exemptions, specifically professional services, emergency purchases, and water rights, real property.
I'll let you take that one.
So these are typical exemptions in a purchasing policy for local governments related to professional services. A lot of times that is going to be something that you might have a specific need for. You know, a niche professional that can only fill that particular role. So it allows the ability to just contract with somebody without having to go through any process of identifying a professional that meets those qualifications.
Does that include your services? That's like legal services?
It includes legal services, it's accountants, it's architects. It doesn't mean, just because it's listed as an exemption, these things are exemptions, that you can't go through a procurement process to identify who you want to contract. You absolutely can. And there are also times where you need somebody quickly. So that might be the case for legal services. You know, what if there was an instance where my firm had a conflict and you wanted to hire, or you, for some reason you needed to hire a lawyer quickly. That's also why it's exempted out. And again, it is typical, and you can also, I mean, engineers are included in this. A lot of times you see RFPs for engineering services. So it's a possibility that it's an exemption, but it doesn't need to be. And then, I mean, the same holds true for the other things that you asked about, water rights, interest in real property. You wouldn't go out for procurement for water rights. I mean, that just doesn't make sense. Purchasing property for water rights, what would be your competing bidders? You've identified what you want, and you want to be able to go out and purchase it. And then there was a third one?
No, that was it.
Okay,
That's true.
okay.
Any other questions or discussion?
Can I recommend that if we have a motion to approve, it be motion to approve with the following change: removing travel from unauthorized purchases under section E, procurement guides.
Should I do that, or should we just make an amendment to it and then vote? It's a point of information for the attorney.
So you could approve the resolution, a motion to approve the resolution with an amendment to the purchasing policy to exclude travel under the P card use.
So we can do that with one motion?
Yes.
All right. Can I have a motion from somebody? Councilmember Davis.
Motion to approve, thank you. He's in charge of my motion to approve the amendment, or the resolution with the amendment included.
And the amendment to remove travel from section E of the, under purchasing, under the purchasing card program.
Correct.
Councilmember Parmet.
Seconded as you clarified, Mr. Mayor.
All right. Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor, please raise your hands. All those opposed? The motion is passed by a vote of 6-0.
Mr. Mayor, while we're still on this topic, if I may, under the purchasing policy just approved, we're limited to one P card without approval of the board. Since we're discussing it right now, I would request the board pass a motion to allow the town manager to get P cards for the town clerk and the public works director when such a person is hired.
All right. So your suggestion is the town would have 3 P cards.
Correct,
Public Works Director, Town Manager, and the Town Clerk.
correct.
What do you think, Council?
Does that say one right now?
It
Yes.
says one right now.
So do we need to make an amendment?
No, we could do it with, the policy requires a vote of the council, it doesn't require a resolution. So the council can vote to, and that's what we would do here, if we wanted to grant that authority, we could vote to grant that authority
It would be by motion.
by motion. You were reaching first, Councilmember Keel?
I was gonna say that that sounds totally reasonable to have three. I think one is a little bit limiting for our staff. So I guess I would suggest a motion saying 3 is perfectly sufficient.
So can I phrase your motion?
Yes,
You
please
would
do.
then move to allow the town manager to have P cards issued for the town manager, the town clerk, and the public works director.
Correct.
Councilmember Davis.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please raise your hands. All those opposed? The motion is carried by a vote of 6-0. Next item on the agenda is the report of the town manager and staff. I'll turn it over to the town manager.
Okay, I've got a lot here. I'm going to start with the Brightwood development and the issues with the water they've had on the site and have been pumping off the site. As many of you may have noticed, the ponds on the west side of Keystone Road there have become very dirty and silted. I'll explain the situation. They had to do some groundwork tying into utilities, including the storm sewer system, among other things. They probably picked the worst week ever to do it with our incredibly high runoff and our rainy nights every night. So the groundwater has just been an incredible problem down there. Our community development director, the county engineer who's overseeing it, and I have made numerous visits to the site. I've talked with Kermit Miller from Stan Miller, the excavating company that's doing this. I'll explain how they are filtering the water right now. They are pumping the water out of the hole. It goes through 2 of these big silt bags that are as big as almost this area inside the tables here. Filters through 2 of those, and then they have 2 deflated bags that it's filtering through into a catchment pond with a dirt dam. It flows over the dam through the catchment into a second catchment where the water is then filtered by gravel, flows through the gravel into a third catchment where it's filtered by straw baffles, and then it goes into the storm system, which was designed to dump into those ponds. Those ponds to the west side of Keystone Road are actually sediment ponds. They're designed to settle out the sediment before it gets to the water. And there are, I believe, 4 ponds and various wetlands in the area. I've been keeping an eye on it long before the water. The 4th pond has always remained clear throughout this entire process. So the system is doing what it's supposed to do. No one is happy with the amount of water or the amount of sediment in it, but given how much sediment is in the river water flowing down, it's almost impossible for them. Well, it's economically unfeasible for them to pump clear water out of that. It would require something like a sewer plant, literally, to clean the amount of sediment out of that water. I just wanted to keep you informed that we're on top of it, and they're doing everything possible to minimize the impact of the construction. But they're using the system the way it's meant to be used. Today, unfortunately, there was too much water. This was when they cut into the storm sewer and didn't realize how much water was still flowing through that. So that's why we got some of the leakage across the bike path. They put sandbags up and reinforced them, so hopefully that problem will be gone. Yes?
Councilmember Keith.
Do we have any long-term concerns about the grade of that building or that proximity of that parking lot that they're building? That was part of my concern with that plot, is how close that parking lot is to the running water through there. Is this going to be like a long-term issue, or this is just
No, this
months
is,
of building?
this isn't surface water. The water is literally all coming into holes dug down below the water table. So,
So once they're done,
once they're done.
no additional water that's going to be a problem for that building?
And none that, there will be slightly more runoff from the parking lots and the paved area, but it should be well within the capabilities of the storm sewer system.
Is there an issue with the proximity of that parking lot being pushed back, or that road being pushed back?
There shouldn't be.
There shouldn't be. Okay.
Councilmember Barnett.
First, a couple of clarifying questions, and then perhaps some comments, since I've only just learned about that. I've had a lot of thoughts that come to mind. But first, I'd like to make sure that I'm thinking the same thing that you're actually referring to. So you're talking about the project that is just west of the Keystone Lodge, the water running across into the ponds on the far side.
Correct.
So those are freshwater forested shrub wetlands, PSS 1C federal wetlands. So I have a couple of questions I'd love for you to clarify. In fact, you may need to clarify. Because when you say they're being used as intended, I understand that the function of the wetland in our natural ecosystem is to filter water. But the function of the wetland is not to serve as a filtration system for a construction project. They still have water runoff regulations they have to comply with. And we have visible turbidity. Is there going to be water quality testing, turbidity testing? Who's reported this to the appropriate state and federal agencies? There's a lot of stuff here, more than just going like, well, it's really hard, they'd have to build a plant, it's too hard, so we'll just get it over with. And if I've misinterpreted it, please correct me, but that's kind of what I was hearing, and that's a little alarming to me.
The county engineer is actually in charge of all of those issues. And as far as I know, there has not been turbidity testing. I did not realize those were designated wetlands because I guess my assumption when I looked at them was they were constructed to receive this set because they are where the outflow of our storm sewer goes.
Maybe we're not talking about the same area. You're talking about the stuff that's on the west side of the road. Okay, so I'm looking at a USGS map that shows that as wetlands. It's on the wetlands map, or if you Google that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will dive into that tomorrow. My assumption was because, like I said, because the storm sewer dumped into that, that those were designed ponds for this purpose, but I will jump all over that tomorrow.
Greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Mr. Town Manager?
Okay, I will continue on then. So over the past couple weeks, and I'll let the mayor discuss some of these things, we met with Senator Hickenlooper. I met with Public Health about the nicotine abatement plans. our ordinance. They have a few recommended housekeeping ordinances, or changes to the ordinance that I'll be bringing up in the next couple of months. We've met with Verticon about setting it up, and we're going to continue to meet, setting up a town-only IT system rather than piggybacking off of a non-town-owned system. I'm an IT paranoid, as I like to say.
Did they give you a timeline for that?
We're discussing the scope of the project later this week, so. The mayor, council member Kerr and I met with the Summit County Chamber of Commerce. The mayor and I were at the mayor's, managers, and commissioners meeting earlier in the week. He's going to talk about some of the things. I want to talk about two of the issues that were brought up at the mayor's, managers, and commissioners. The first one is the Summit Stages microtransit program. They're starting a rollout of microtransit this year. They're trying in a few specific spots. The experiments are going to be in areas that they say are very heavily workforce committed, where workforce doesn't have good access to the main bus lines. For instance, Summit Cove and the Swan Meadow Trailer Park in Meadow Creek. That being said, Keystone, in all the discussions on microtransit leading up to this, has very much been in the discussions and identified as areas that we have areas that could be very well served with an expansion of microtransit. All the towns in the county are cooperating on possibly doing, applying for a large grant to install more EV charging infrastructure. The mayor and I talked with Keystone about that later, since we don't have a place to put EV charging yet. And Mr. Sorensen was very on board, it sounded like, to utilize Keystone property if necessary to put that on. I'll keep you updated as that moves forward.
Yeah, one comment on that. According to Mr. Sorensen, there may be an electrical capacity issue in Keystone which could limit our ability to deploy fast DC charging stations. Apparently they looked at doing a major project for that several years ago, and the Excel Energy came back and said we'd be happy to, but we're going to have to upgrade the entire service to the entire community, and please pay.
And hopefully the work they're doing on Soda Ridge Road with the new cable will take care of that problem. So the mayor and I did meet with Mr. Sorensen. We brought up cooperation, the EV, and we did bring up the annexation of the additional Keystone properties that are not in the original town limits. For some of the reasons, it made a whole lot of sense for Keystone to want this annexation. We're dealing with one government that's a local government, knows their concerns, to having one government oversee the PUD rather than several governments. And he has requested that town send a letter starting the ball rolling to Vail Reserve. So I'll draft that for our next meeting's approval, hopefully. The town clerk and I had a meeting with DOLA just regarding the administration of the grant the town has received to pay my salary. Met with Dave Frosty from the county several times to bring up all sorts of issues that affect us both. And I've had discussions with Sheriff's Department Peter Haynes and Jamie Fitzsimmons about our coverage here and what our expectations are. At the CIRSA annual membership meeting earlier today, which was, it sounds like a first in the last decade or so, where they actually had a voting quorum and were able to approve minutes from the previous meetings. The only no fundamental changes. Everyone on the board was re-elected to the board. We did change the bylaws to allow the annual meeting more flexibility of when it would be, given the problems they've had in the past of having quorums. Lots of meetings with Employers Council. I'm still working on it about our onboarding processes. And speaking of that, tomorrow at, I have this written down here somewhere, 1 p.m. Yep. Tomorrow at 1 p.m., the Colorado Retirement Association is sending a representative to meet with us. You all contribute a small amount into this 401A program. All the staff is involved. They're sending a representative up here to help us fill in, make choices. If you can be here at 1 p.m., great. If not, I will make sure I take all the notes and can work with you individually to get you signed up so you can make your choices on that money. I will let the mayor talk about the SCHA. Couple events coming up, as Mr. Sorensen said. Keystone opens officially on the 20th. They've already started their Friday afternoon concerts this Friday, the 14th at 4 o'clock in River Run. Bourbon and Bacon will be June 22nd and 23rd. The Keystone cleanup is June 14th, if you want to walk up and down the mountain and pick that up. Next year, we, as a town, will have a town cleanup coinciding with that. The NRO on June 29th is it's their second concert of the season at the Breck River Walk Center. The NRO started here in Keystone, down in the other side of Edgewater and the lots down there, and up in the parking lot across from the inn. So at this concert on June 29th, they will be officially recognizing the town of Keystone. They usually choose a nonprofit or something at each concert to highlight. And this concert, they're going to be highlighting the town of Keystone. And we have the Metzgers to thank for that. They did a wonderful job with that. And upcoming in the near future,
One question on the, I understand that the Metzgers donated 25 tickets to the town for that concert. And what are your plans for those?
They did. I've reached out to staff, to the Charter Commission members, and to the Incorporation Committee members, offering the tickets, and to use the board members. So if you're interested, please let me know. We have the opportunity to get more tickets if we need them. It's Tchaikovsky. It should be a really good concert. They all are. They all are. I recommend everyone online go to an NRO concerts. It's a great institution in our Summit County community. So over the next...
This would provide us having a good turnout at this.
What's the date?
What?
June 29th.
29th, Saturday the 29th, at 7 p.m.
6 p.m.
6 p.m. And this would provide an opportunity to show, one, we support Summit County arts, but the other piece, is they're taking the effort to recognize the town and having a good town turnout. It certainly look good for the town.
Upcoming meetings that your staff will be attending, the community development director and I are meeting with an engineering firm that has proposals on how to serve our needs, from reviewing plans to making plans. As I mentioned, Colorado Retirement Association, I'll be meeting with town manager Dylan to discuss joint ventures that we're interested in. Another meeting with Employers Council. We have CML. I'll be meeting with Marchetti, and our community development director is going to join the Wildfire Ready Watershed Action Plan.
I just found that out.
Kind of feeding off what the fire chief was explaining to us. Let me tell you, this will be an active committee for a community development director. After what I saw in Grand County, it can make a difference. It can make a difference. Upcoming issues, we'll be bringing nuisance, public order, and traffic ordinances to the town, hopefully at the next meeting to start to workshop some of those issues. We'll be talking about, as we discussed, debrucing and lodging tax at upcoming meetings, things for the November ballot. I'll be bringing up opting in to Proposition 123, which is, it was a referred measure passed by the voters of Colorado, creating a fairly substantial pool of money for housing, but to be eligible for that money, you have to opt in to Prop 123. I'll explain what all that entails in the future. We'll be bringing a social media policy and hopefully some IGAs from the Housing Association, the 911 and telecom. And that's all I have got.
Next item is report of the mayor and the council. Does anyone on the council have anything to report? Councilmember Sullivan, then Councilmember Kerr.
A couple quick items, just let you know, we have a new business starting in Ruby's Mac and Cheese, opens the 20th. I met with the owner, Jeff and Smith Davis. Get a chance to go visit them, they're right on Town Square. So just a little new business. Second, we have a committee formed for the pursuit of the post office or the postal services. It's a 3-level thing, with the first being a combination of the zip code and potentially additional services, route services to the town. And the last level would be the potential long-term post office. Anyway, the committee has created a proposal that will be eventually given to postmaster, who will bring it up the USPS line. We'll be engaging hopefully federal support politicians to help us with this as we pursue it. But what I will be doing is sending a draft version of this to the council, and I'd like you to get back to me one-on-one with your thoughts or ideas or improvements to that. Okay. Last thing I want to mention is that back to short-term rentals. One of the things that's critical is that we do communicate our process and our plans. Kind of like Councilwoman Kerr mentioned, is that it's confusing to a lot of people. Specifically, the event, a friend of mine had been trying to sell a condo. The realtor was with a buyer and said that you better buy soon because the new town's going to cap SDRs. Well, there's been no discussion about that. That's the kind of rumor that's out there, so it's important that we continue to update the website, they hear it from us in the council meetings, because it is out there. So that's all I had.
All right. Councilmember Kerr, could you talk about the Chamber of Commerce meeting?
Certainly. So the mayor, the town manager, and I met with the director of the Summit County Chamber of Commerce, as well as their membership chair. They are in the midst of some reorganization and resetting of priorities. However, they're very interested in developing closer relationships with the businesses in Keystone and would like to do so by offering that they will be a liaison with the town. We're open to that. We've encouraged that. And we've provided a list of the businesses that we are aware of because of the charter communication that we did. And then they'll take it from there. And I think, you know, they would like to be more focused on education in the future, and we have offered that we would be like to be a part of that. So this is all about just creating transparent communications with all the members of our community, to include, and sometimes especially, businesses, so that they don't leap to conclusions like the one that Congressman, I mean, I'm just promoting you all over the place, that Council Member Sullivan referred to. So thank you.
All right. Any other comments from the council? Councilmember Parmet.
First, thanks to staff for the microphones. I'm noting that the transcription is vastly more accurate this meeting. I'm hoping folks online can hear better. And then second, a quick question. In reviewing the agenda packet and the letters to council, there was, I'm looking forward to the road and nuisance discussion, speed, safety, sound control. But there is a letter that does look like it could be urgent or become urgent from Casey Craven about River Run Road. Apparently they're having some real issues with speeding and traffic on that rather short stretch. It's about to be summer, and there gets to be a lot of bikes and pedestrian traffic on that short segment road, River Run. Is there anything that we can do about this, or action already taken?
I'll be reaching out to them. I'm not quite sure what they're talking about. I've biked their road. I've biked their road often and haven't necessarily noticed the traffic. After I talk to that person, I'll reach out to the sheriff's department if we do need some sort of increased enforcement there.
Cool. The question was, where was this? It's page 9 of the agenda PDF. Oh, the road, it comes off of when you turn into River Run, and it runs past like Riverbank, and then goes past into like Kings Pot and Sea.
Well, it comes past Riverbank and runs down to Alcove.
Yeah.
It's where the lot, the
construction is.
That's where the construction, the two projects.
Thank you. I assumed it was in that area, but I wasn't quite sure.
All right. Any other comments before Councilmember Kerr?
I should have asked this when the town manager was talking. Could we have an update on hiring actions, please?
I'm staring on what actions? Hiring. Oh, hiring. Yes, we have posted the job for Public Works Director. The closing date is June 28th on that. We're keeping our fingers crossed and reaching out to people we might think might be interested in it and letting them know about it. We've posted it through Paylocity. Is it on the CML site? On the CML site. And we're working on it. And I do know we've had some applicants that our Community Development Director is going through for the planner position. So hopefully that'll be filled soon.
Carol, I started making calls to the applicants, 2 or 3 of them now. More to come. Still trying to get the word out there.
I'm sorry. So that's the planner position is still open?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thanks.
Are you interested?
All right. there's no other council member comments, let me run through a few things for well, as well. In dealing with the mayor and BOCC and managers meeting, the county is considering with the other towns, there have been a rural transportation agency to enable them to potentially be eligible for funding in that area. It would take a vote of the public to establish that agency. I'm not sure what's involved or what Keystone's involvement would be in that at this time. It's a little premature, but just a heads up if that's being considered at the county level. We've had the discussion in the past about the IMTR. Apparently, it looks like the IMTR will not be splitting up. It's a political decision, apparently, and our portion of the IMTR didn't have the votes to overwhelm that, as it goes to the CDOT Commission, who will end up making that final decision. The county is starting a pay-as-you-throw trash program next spring. It shouldn't have any major impact on Keystone, but in the future, it may be something that the council may want to consider later as we have more time. The school district is on track in planning for some sort of a bond issue this fall and on the November ballot, and that's still ongoing. Exactly the framework of what that would entail has not been totally firmed up. There have been several community surveys that have been taken on that subject. Earlier in the work session, we talked about the tour of the mountain on July 19th for the council, and more information to come on that. As the town manager indicated, we met at a summit roundup with Senator Hickenlooper a couple of weeks ago. A couple of highlights from that that we pointed out, but also in the other towns. The HOA insurance issue and the insurance issue we brought up, Hickenlooper was not aware of the drastic increases that have occurred at his level. He hadn't seen that. He took notes. And so what happens out of that, who knows, but at least it got initially onto his radar. Also, at that same meeting with Hickenlooper, there was, we brought up the subject of the post office, and he did point out that the post office is in business right now closing post offices, not opening new post offices. He did take some information on that, particularly when we talked about the number of unserved people we have in this community that right now are disadvantaged to get receiving mail, and also the fact that we had a major issue with ballots over in Vail Resorts in the postal receiving area over there as well. That got his attention as well. Now, what this does is set us up later to be able to go to him and Congressman Goose for potentially some help on any items we wanted to deal with the post office. There was a major discussion at the mayor council's meeting, at the mayor BOCC managers meeting with Senator Goose's staff regarding postal service overall and issues with the deal with the post office, particularly parking issues and rumors. Post office ain't moving. If anyone tells you it's moving, they don't know what they're talking about. There's a rumor that someone proposed an idea it should move to Bed Bath, and where Bed Bath and Beyond was, and therefore the rumor has taken hold, and everyone says, well, post office is moving. Well, apparently the post office facilities people do not divest facilities. So the Dillon mayor made a strong point of that. And other discussions with Hickenlooper was workforce housing, infrastructure supporting workforce housing, and some particular issues that Dillon has with them putting workforce housing on the dredge lots, and they have to go down 8 feet through the rock all the rock sediment to put in the utilities and how expensive that is. And is there any chance for federal help? And maybe some with overall from an infrastructure standpoint. But those items were discussed there. We also got feedback that the Dillon Council has passed a resolution to support Keystone joining the Suffolk County Housing Authority. Frisco is considering that on their agenda this week. Should be considering that, and then I think it's next week is the Housing Authority meeting, board meeting itself, which I expect that to be on the agenda there. So we're moving forward in that area. I doubt if it's going to be 1 July, but we're moving forward in a positive direction in that area. And that's the result of my meetings that I was involved with this week. Any questions? All right. Any other matters that need to be brought up? Next item on the agenda. Hearing none, the next regular scheduled meeting is next week for the CML conference, and there will be a meeting notice that we put out on that. And then the next regular scheduled meeting is June 26th, 2 weeks from today, of which one of our council members will do anything to get out of council meeting.
I will not be in attendance for that meeting, as I will be having a baby on that exact day. So I will not be on attendance.
A baby or a resident voter?
A tiny resident voter.
A tiny resident.
Resident.
All right. In that case, hearing no more discussion on the items, and without objection, I will adjourn the meeting. The meeting's adjourned. Thank you.